Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 84. I'm delighted today to be joined by Nathan Griffith, the lead academy strength and conditioning coach at Oxford United. Nathan, how's things?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yourself, Ben?
All good, thanks, mate. We just had a good catch up there on what you've been up to, and you've been making the most of this time, which we're going to go into in a bit more detail shortly. But I'm sure anyone that's been to any of our network meetings will know you. They'll know all about you from talking to you at the meetings. But just give us a little bit of background on you and your career so far.
Yeah, so I went to University of Derby, and in my first year, I was there for 4 years. In my first year, I was able to get an internship at Derby County Excellence for the girls. Was there for a good year. When I applied for the internship, I had no idea what the strength conditioning was, but I thought, you know what, it sounds cool. I'm just going to go with it. Got there and yeah, I liked it. I liked the internship alongside doing obviously my first year. And then it was not only until my second year where I applied for the Academy S&C intern role at Derby Academy for the boys. And I mean, if anyone's been to Derby before, it's amazing. Like the facilities there are so good. And because I love football anyway, it just made me fall in love with the training ground and obviously what S&C applies. So yeah, I think I learned so much within that role from a sense of a practical aspect. I got pushed in the deep end. I got told in a 2-3 weeks, okay, now you're doing the sessions. Now you obviously, since you've been shadowing, and I just loved it. I worked alongside with Danny Patson, who was in charge of me, and then also Mikolai, who's now the strength and conditioning coach for under 23s at Watford. So it was a really good year, and I learned a lot from it. And then because I was there for 4 years, I wanted to gain additional experience. Because I had an internship at Derby, I contacted Burnham City Football Club and saw if I could gain an internship there. And I was able to. I went through an interview process because I wasn't part of Birmingham University. I was kind of like, as you call it, as like an outsider. So I was doing an internship role there with the academy, and that was really good. They had player tech at the time, and I was learning all their GPS and the monitoring with the under 18s and helping assist their Elliot at the time there. Like great guy. Very practical experience in terms of outside. His delivery was great, and I picked up loads of things right there. And then I obviously finished my university degree. I just want to say as well, like the University of Derby, if anyone is thinking about where to go for university, University of Derby really helped me. I think James Keenan, the program leader there, he made that course so applied. I did a sports science degree, and in my second and third year, I got to choose strength conditioning as a module, and they made it so realistic to the UKSCA assessments at the time, which was really good. And part of that which helped my journey, it was Luke Jenkinson, who's head of sports science at Derby now. He was assistant lecturer at the time, and I think everyone who knows Luke Jenkinson, like he's really intelligent and really enthusiastic about the role, which made me know for definite that that's the route I wanted to go down to as well. So I finished my degree there. So I had the experience of Derby and Birmingham, which was great. Then went to do my master's at Middlesex University, which is where Chris Bishop and Anthony Turner are run a program down there. But alongside that, I knew that the industry was so competitive. So I decided to gain another internship at Charlton. And that was with Harry Bierman and Kamal. Kamal, who's now at Colchester now. Learned both top guys, learned a lot from them. But I was only there for 3 months. I was fortunate to gain a full-time paid job at Barnet, which was great. I mean, I was doing masters at the same time, and I was doing something that I loved doing and something that I worked for so long. And I just felt like, wow, like now, like I'm finally doing it. I'm finally doing what I want without no guidance, just doing from everything that I've learned from previous. But unfortunately, at that time, Barnet, when I joined them, they were in the relegation battle in League Two. And by the end of the season, they got relegated, which meant that unfortunately I lost my job. So that was a killer because I've worked so hard, got all these internships, and then I thought, okay, I've done it now. I'm in the industry, and everyone always tells me that once you're in, you're in. But then as soon as that, I was out of it. So then I was thinking, okay, like, what am I gonna do now? So I finished my master's. That was great. And then I was in the process of looking for new, obviously, jobs. I'm not gonna obviously say the teams that I applied for, but I was able to get an interview with these two clubs. But obviously, unfortunately, I didn't get them. And then it was only until the last day. It was a role at Peterborough. I was able to get a role at Peterborough, working under James Baum. That was with the academy. So I was doing gym sessions with the 14s, 15s, and 16s, and outside sessions as well. And if needed to, I would cover James doing under 18s if he was ill or anything like that. And then I was in that role for good 11 months. In that time as well, obviously, because it was a part-time paid position, I obviously needed to work full-time. At the time, I moved back to my parents from my master's, and it took me from Tamworth to Peterborough. It was like an hour and 45 on a part-time role, and like the driving was crazy at times. But it was just something that had to be done. Like I was so persistent and knew that this is the role I wanted to be in. So I was just committed to it. So I was there for 11 months, driving up and down 3 days. Peterborough made it easy for me, so we changed my schedule, so it was easy for me because they knew my travel circumstances. And then after that, I was able to, where my current position is right now, is become obviously a strength conditioning coach for the academy, which is responsible for the under nines all the way down to under 23s. So then I've been there ever since, over a year now. And yeah, I'm loving it every single day. Great players, great staff to work with.
Yeah, I think we're going to come back to your current role in a second, because we're going to delve into some of the work you've been doing at Oxford. But it's great to hear your journey so far and the clubs that you've been at. But what I wanted to ask, Nathan, was, because this will relate to a lot of people. Some people go through an internship and think that they're going to then step into a full-time role at a club. And when, like you said, you've been to interviews, you've gone through interviews and get numerous knockbacks before you even get that next opportunity, whether it be an internship or a full-time role. But how did your mindset work when you go into interviews, you go through it and then you get knocked back and then you seek that next opportunity? Because a lot of people at that point would probably step away and go for something else.
I think that's just my personality trait of how I don't let anything knock me back. I mean, I've came out of some interviews and I thought, okay, wow, like, okay, this is mine. Like, I've got this. But then obviously a couple of weeks later, I'm thinking, oh, wow, I didn't get it. And then obviously you're disappointed, but you're moping around for a good day or two. But then I suppose you just got to pick yourself back up and just believe in the process and just believe that one day it will happen. And it did. I mean, in my current role, the academy manager told me that 155 people applied for my role, and it was like a 2-interview process. My first interview process was obviously coming in, presenting what can I give to the academy, what am I gonna obviously, how am I gonna make a difference, and then it was going downstairs into the gym and doing a gym practical. So that was the first interview process, and then I felt good about that. And then I was fortunate to get through to the next interview process, which was having a match day experience. So I had to obviously go with the under 18s and be in charge on match day and supporting the obviously coaching staff at the time. And then, yeah, so that was a different type of interview. It was very, very applied, but I'd rather that than obviously being sat down. But yeah, I think it's just being persistent and just never giving up. And I think just having family and friends supporting you at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think made you stand out in that interview process? You said, 155 people going through the interview process. So what do you think was the difference for yourself?
I think just being who you are and just being honest and genuine. Don't try to be someone you're not. And Yeah, I think that's 100% something that I would give advice to someone who's going into interview. Don't be someone who you're not, and just be who you are.
No, that's top. And like I say, we will delve into the program and the work that you've done at Oxford just in a little bit. But one thing I wanted to touch on first, because we're recording this at the time of being in lockdown. And I don't think, honestly, looking online, anyone's taken up the opportunity quite as much as yourself to get around people, to grow your network and make use of this time. So I'm sure a lot of people would have seen what you've had going on, but do you want to just give a little bit? Let's take it back to initially when we went into lockdown, your thinking behind using this time, and then what you've had. Go into a bit of detail about what you've been running.
Yeah, sure. So when we got the lockdown, no one knew how long it would actually go along for. So I was thinking, okay, I can't do this. I can't just be like in my bed or in my living room all day. I have to do something. So it just literally started out with knowing strength conditioning coaches that I already know and just asking them, okay, would you be happy coming into a group chat? And then we meet up every Thursday and just have a discussion. And then before you know it, the first one went really well. I mean, it started off with just 9 people, and we all just had a range of discussions in terms of Olympic lifting, UKSCA, maturation, strength training, other people's experiences of what they've came across. And then before you know it, each week it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it got to the point where it got not tedious, but we was kind of speaking about the same people. How can I make this better? So that's when 2 weeks ago I invited Carl, who has great experience all over the game and has been at Derby, Tottenham, Watford, and I just asked him, would you be willing to come onto the webinar and just speak about your experiences, and like what advice would you give to young practitioners? And then that went from there. And then last week I invited the assistant manager and head of performance from Oxford, and that was a great experience. I mean, both of them combined have like so much of experience to give, and I've learned so much from them in my time at Oxford. And it's nice because at other clubs that I've been to, there's been really like a separation between academy and first team, but that's not the case at Oxford.
And then as this podcast goes out, it's actually going to be the week after that you've just ran the webinar with Callum and Paul Bauer up at Huddersfield. So obviously we can't touch on that yet, but another two former guests on the podcast, 2 guys that have got incredible experience. And we were just joking before that you might have to have some extra time on the Zoom call, because these are guys that are so willing to share information and chat through things. That one's going to be a top one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I met Callum in the Science and Sport conference, and he was obviously amazing speaking then, and we've kept in touch ever since. And he's gave me like great advice. And to be fair, I never knew Paul or never spoke to him before, but I've heard the podcast of where he's been at, Football Fitness Federation, and him speaking about the Huddersfield structure, obviously because they have a unique academy, obviously in terms of everyone else. They don't have that under 9s to under 16s program. So I thought it'd be really interesting for him to come on, expand on that. And obviously with the players that Huddersfield recruit, they must all have different training ages. So how does he apply that? What does he do? How does he individualize them to how does he individualize them to make their needs and get them where they need to be to push them on into the first team? So I thought it would be great to get them two on, and I'm really excited for Thursday and hearing what they've got to say.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a good one. But if obviously we don't know yet how long the lockdown is going to go on for, but is the intention to run it until we're back and we're out of lockdown and people are going back into training?
Yeah, definitely. I think the main thing is to give something back to everyone. And I think maybe a long-term vision would be to start doing webinars maybe every month, just once a month, just to keep that interaction going. I think everyone would be interested in that. And I mean, certainly I would take a lot out of it, learning from more experienced practitioners. So yeah, that's a possibility in the future.
And in terms of, because you've just been talking about the numbers of the coaches that are involved just in the WhatsApp group alone, you've got loads of people really willing and some top practitioners as well. I see people's names popping up in the WhatsApp and thinking like, there's some good quality people involved in this. So if people want to get involved, like, is there a way that they can just drop me a message and they can get involved with it?
Yeah, sure. You can get me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and then just if you provide me with your number, I can just add you into the WhatsApp group. But like you said, Ben, I mean, we have like Perry, who just joined recently from Colchester, who's the head of Academy Sports Science, obviously at Colchester, and then we have just normal interns, and it's great to, like, obviously there's no hierarchy within the group chat. We're all one, and we're all willing to help each other. I mean, there was a message in the group chat last night, which obviously you're involved in too. Someone asked a question about Ramadan. I mean, how can we train athletes in Ramadan? And obviously there was people that gave responses and helped them out. So yeah, it's very informative, and yeah, I mean, it's a great service for everyone to be involved in.
No, I'd encourage people to get involved, because I think, like you said, the openness of the conversations. I've been on the calls and I've seen how open people are to chat about different things, and it's great because I think sometimes on social media it can be very hard, and we've spoke about this a lot in the network meetings, that if you put yourself out there on social media, obviously it stays out there. Some people are out there to just shoot you down, whereas these are the conversations and the environments that you've created that can really benefit coaching, and especially in this time, subjects about like Ramadan and what we're going through now. These are times that there's not too much information out there, so reaching out to other practitioners is really, really key, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and I'd encourage everyone to still help each other even throughout lockdown and even after lockdown. Just to keep having that communication and having that line of, okay, I know someone who I can ask for advice, which if something I don't know about. But yeah, I mean, it's great to have.
Yeah, definitely. So we just said before about going into your current role. So do you just want to give a little bit of background on when you got the role at Oxford, what did the program look like when you first went into it?
Yeah. So the person before me, Holly Pickett, she did an amazing job. And with the 18s and 23s. But I felt at the time there was not much within the academy structure, just in terms of, not saying that she did a bad job at all. It was just what I was used to and what I've seen from Derby, Birmingham. And obviously it was a very small team. And I wanted every age group to have exposure of S&C, strength conditioning. So at the time when I was at Birmingham, they had that. And I wanted everything that I liked about every club that I've been to, I wanted to apply it to Oxford. So what I did was made sure that I had that supportive system. So I wanted, obviously, that, like I said, so I hired 3 interns and a part-time staff member. And then I created an athletic development plan for the under 9s all the way down to the under 16s. So the under 9s to the under 16s, they have obviously 2 different, it's not similar, but it's obviously 2 different things. So the foundation age group, I'll take you through our weekly schedule. So on a Monday, we have a carousel, and we have multiple carousels of 4 or 5. And within the strength conditioning carousel, obviously for the foundation age group, that's made of just a multi-sports environment. So that could be handball, dodgeball, anything that we want to be creative in terms of tag, rugby, just anything that will provide them with different movement skills and just for enjoyment, really, because obviously they have school, they're probably playing football in school, and then obviously coming to Oxford and they're playing football 24/7. So it's just to kind of mix it a little bit up. And then apart from we have the athletic development curriculum, which then each week they're learning certain skills. So it could be landing mechanics. Then the next week after that could be coordination. And then it's the same thing for the YDP, but we have just a little bit more emphasis and have a little bit of supportive feature for mobility and for plyometrics. And then just a bit more development for speed. And then the 18s and 23s, I wanted to push that. I mean, one of my main goals of what Dan Harris said to me was in the interview is that obviously we want to push these players into the first team as much as possible. And when I joined, we had such a talented group. I mean, they just won the league for their division. And so obviously the coaching staff and everyone else did an amazing job. And then I came in from the second part. But we had like first years who already had pros and second years who had pros as well. So with the under 18s, we have such a good relationship with the first team, as we share the same training ground and the same facilities. So within the under 18s and 23s, we train 4 times in the gym a week. So Mondays is an upper body strength session. Tuesdays is a lower body strength session. Wednesdays they have college. Thursdays is a lower body power session. And then Fridays is a mobility plus an upper body power session as well. And there's a really buy-in within the academy. I mean, if you go into towards our gym, you have the stats, the physical stats of the first team. And then if you look to the left, we have the exact same thing for the academy for 18s and 23s. And that's just massive buy-in in terms of that's the aim of where they need to be. And they know that. And then we do obviously outside, we have a kind of a curriculum outside where we want to focus on deceleration and we want to focus on running mechanics, and that changes and switches week in, week out.
And in terms of because you said about going through the experiences at different clubs and picking things up along the way, that you were sort of getting this catalogue of things together that you wanted to then put in place when you're in charge of a program like you are now. So what was you've touched on a lot there. Was that all included in that, or were there certain things that you thought, right, that's definitely something that I want in my program?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that I learned at Peterborough was using maturation on PMA. And it's such an easy soft piece of software. So obviously you do the height, you use the sitting height, and then, sorry, what was it? Height, sitting height. Oh my God, I've lost it. There's one more thing, but obviously use that equation and you put it all into PMA, and then it figures out of how far away the players are from peak height velocity. So I used that. I learned how to do that in Peterborough. So I was able to transfer that onto Oxford as well. That was one of the things. And then so how obviously a gym session runs, what to include in what exercises in what gym session. So obviously a strength session, what to include in a power session. And yeah, I think that really helped me, just all the experiences that I've gained from other clubs. So yeah.
And I was going to ask about that. Sorry, mate. What do you say?
No, just the best coaches are thieves, I think.
That's true. That's true. And we'll touch on your influences in a little bit, because I know you've got plenty that you've taken from throughout your career so far. But I was going to ask about, because you mentioned about the strength program that the 18s and the 23s are going through, and you mentioned like the priority of each day. Well, I think everyone's got a bit of a philosophy in terms of their approach in the gym, and we've not really delved into it so much. We've had a few episodes where we've gone into it a little bit, but what's your approach? What is your general gym philosophy, and some things that you believe in and some things that you don't believe in as much when you step in the gym?
I mean, I tried to make it as specific to obviously on pitch. So like I think a saying that most of us has heard is train movements and not solely on muscles. I mean, so I believe that to a certain extent, in terms of if there's an injured player, then they have to obviously train that certain muscle to obviously rebuild robustness. But I think I've learned, it's changing all the time, my philosophy. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, this was one of the things that was good about the webinar, and Carl speaking. He was saying that obviously there's such an emphasis on strength training and having that player to lift as so much, but if they haven't got the correct mobility to do that, then you're limiting their performance. So strength shouldn't be the first thing on your mind. It should be assessing their mobility, and if they haven't got good mobility, then don't put them on strength training first, because they can't lift to 100% capacity. So I think that's 100% something that I'm going to look into my program when we return after lockdown, is obviously just have a deeper insight into the movement quality for each player. Because like I said, there's no point sticking them onto strength training and lifting 90 kg if they haven't got the mobility to do that. So yeah, and then something about what I've learned from other practitioners was just like we were speaking as well. Don't speed up what you can't slow down. I've learned from a presentation that John Noonan did in UKSCA, which is so true. I mean, if they can't decelerate and change direction, then why are you focusing on speed? I mean, obviously football is a multi-directional sport. So they need to have that within their locker. And then something that I was really interested in was isometric training as well. I think Luke Jeggerson touched it on a podcast that I was listening to. I think it was on Pacey Podcast, but it was about that we place so much emphasis on the academy onto technique, but we're not actually teaching them on how to produce force. And isometric training is a great way to do that in terms of teaching them how to generate force which is obviously a simple technique to obviously use. So that's one other thing that I've been doing within the academy, just doing isometric training and just showing the child or individual athlete that they are strong if they put a certain amount through the ground.
And in terms of breaking that down to exercises and what that program looks like, what are you focusing on with that in terms of isometrics?
So isometrics, just obviously we haven't got the equipment to do that, so we can't actually measure how much force is producing through the ground. So we just do stuff which is obviously just a normal isometric. So it could be just mid-thigh pull, just lifting up in the rack. Like I said, we judge it on seconds because obviously we don't have the equipment to, unfortunately, to measure that. But yeah, so that's kind of the stuff that we do. We just do normal isometric exercises. So for example, if it's been a heavy week and the players are feeling sore, then I'd rather do obviously isometric because it's supposed to obviously be less fatiguing than strength training. So yeah, that's the approach that I would take.
And with that program as well, on a whole, what are some other key changes you think you've made recently? Well, obviously before we went into lockdown.
So I think it would definitely be more emphasis on mobility. I think I can't think on the top of my head actually.
This can be as a whole as well. This doesn't necessarily need to be in the gym. Like you've mentioned, a lot of great work that's going on at Oxford, but any sort of key shifts in mindset, like reading different things that you thought, actually I can apply that. Like you just mentioned about going into and applying different things when we come out of lockdown, you've got access to the players again. But before we went into lockdown, was there anything that you thought, right, we're going to change that, and you managed to implement in that time?
I mean, I think one thing that I have learned when doing the webinars and speaking to loads of practitioners is what we just spoke about briefly actually before, is that there's no magic training program and there's no magic way of doing things. And I think everyone does, I think in every club, do near enough the same thing. But the only difference is, obviously, like we said, is that the communication and the relationship with the players and that bond. And do you have that buy-in? If you don't have the buy-in, then your program won't be as effective. But if you do have that buy-in, obviously your program will be as effective as it can be. So I think that's important for young practitioners or people that are trying to get into the industry, is that there's no one way to do it. And I think something else I've also learned is that different practitioners have different philosophies. And I think before and previously I've been, okay, why is he doing that for? But everyone has a rationale for doing it and it works for them. So I've always had an open eye for changing and being open to everything.
And I think, and you've proved this with the calls and that you're running now, there's nothing wrong with asking that question either, is there? If you see something and you're a bit like, oh, why is someone doing that? Actually asking them why they're doing it and getting that rationale is not a bad thing. Like that's something that we should be able to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if they can't reply back and have a rationale for what obviously they're doing, then that's when you kind of question that someone. Because if you do, I think when you implement something, you should always have a rationale for it, and it should be either practical approached or evidence based. So yeah, I think whatever you implement, you have to have a rationale behind it.
Definitely. And if we touch on a few more influences, Nathan, because you've crossed I'll start that again. You've crossed across a few clubs there and mentioned a few people along the way as well. Who else has been some key influences in your career so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think one big one would be Luke Jeggerson. I think the lectures that he put on was like great. It was so insightful to hear. And yeah, so that'd be definitely be one. Kamal was a big one. I took a lot away from him. A very good practitioner. And I said, yeah, Elliot Warmer, who's was under 18 strength conditioning coach, and now he is a first team strength conditioning coach at Birmingham City Football Club. I think just his expectations and what he wants from you, and like I said, he knew what to get out of the players. Trying to think who else. There's also been, even though I've worked with a lot of alongside S&C coaches, there's been really good football coaches that I've worked alongside with as well, and that I've took so much out from. When it was my time, when I went to Barnet, I was with Rossi, who was the first team manager at Barnet, but obviously things didn't go too well, and he went to become under 18s manager. And because he had that high expectation of what it should be in the first team, he brought it down to where it wasn't under 18s, and I learned so much in terms of just obviously making sure that even simplest things of making sure that the players have water when they have obviously breaks, and yeah, just being on time and being proactive. I learned a lot from that. And even right now, under our academy manager Dan Harris, he's been a great mentorship for me, and I've taught a lot from him. I've learned a lot from him, and yeah, he's been great. I mean, everyone at Oxford, I've learned a lot from, and we have such a Leon at the moment, who's the under 18s coach. He has such a buy-in towards S&C, and we work together so well. And yeah, there's such a good just a communication around that. And he's really open, and I'm really open as well.
I know you mentioned probably, I think it was before we started recording, but you mentioned about the first team and academy being in the same building. And I think it was on the recording as well, because you mentioned about the leaderboards in the gym as well. But what sort of impact do you think that has on the academy players to see the first team, be around the first team within that same building?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. I mean, I just walk out of my office, and if I go like turn left, then the gaffer's office is right there as well. And the players obviously walk around with other first team members. And then obviously when we go out to training, they're not too far away. They're only a pitch away or 2 pitches away. There's just a great environment to be in. And I think it's great for the players to be around that and just know that that's where they want to be. And then what we do and what we work really well is that the training for the first team and the academy run at the same time. So if any academy player, if the first team is short, then it provides any academy players to go to obviously and train with the first team in case anyone pulls out or anything. So yeah, I mean, the gaffer at the club, Carl Robson, he's great with young players, and he gives them opportunities. And I think we've had so many academy players in the under 18s and under 23s that have gone on to make their debuts. And like I said, we have loads of young pros as well. So yeah, there's loads of potential within Oxford United.
And I want you to get your thinking cap on now and get a bit creative, because we're going to go into the fantasy world and remove a lot of limitations in terms of finances, in terms of maybe it might be location or whatever it is. But if you had your way with the program and you could take it in any direction that you wanted to, whether that be kit, whether that be personnel, whatever it was, how would you want to move the program on at Oxford? Because you've obviously implemented a lot of things already.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have like an iPad. I know a lot of clubs already have it, but I'd love to have it in terms of we do go live, but we have to bring the unit out with us as well. But I would love to just go out and just have an iPad and then just have literally just checking it and seeing what they've done. It'd make it so much easier than having to drag the laptop plus the pod and then carrying that around and chasing where the players go. So I think that would definitely be one thing, making sure that we have an iPad. And I suppose platforms, I think we have 4 or 5 platforms, but I suppose, as you know, more would be obviously better for everyone. As what we touched on as well, obviously isometric equipment to obviously make sure that, okay, how much force are they actually exerting through the ground, and then monitoring that. I think it'll be good for like a return to train protocol as well, in case that they can't do any movements just yet, see where they actually are functionally. And I think it would be actually having full-time members of staff within the under 9s, under 16s, and just having I think someone was telling me Wolves have, for every age group, a full-time member of staff for each age. I mean, I think that's incredible. That's amazing. I have to oversee so many age groups. But yeah, I think that would definitely help me out, I think.
No, that's good to hear. And with that as well, like, I think it's nice to reflect on, isn't it? Because when you've been through your journey so far, and I'm looking probably more at clubs like Barnet, you'd have probably looked at what you were doing now and the access that you have to the gym and the environment you're in now, and that probably felt a million miles away. And talking about those things that you spoke about there could only just be round the corner, couldn't they, in terms of this role progressing or possibly even the next role?
Yeah, I think in your role, you have to be adaptive. I remember when I was at Barnet and we had to share the gym with public members. So I'm obviously taking a gym with under 18s, but the space is so limited because you may have a woman who's taken up the whole platform, or just anyone. And yeah, literally you have to work around it. And it was so hard, but I think it makes you a better practitioner for it. And like you said, like you think back and you actually think, wow, like how far obviously you have came. But obviously I still want to progress. I still want to pursue. Obviously I have my ambitions as well. So yeah, it's, definitely want to, yeah. When you think back at it and you think back at where public members used to share your gym space, I think it's crazy. But yeah, so I think number one thing, you have to be adaptable.
And in terms of the future, Nathan, what do you see? What are your aspirations? Where is it ending up with a first team, or because it's quite an interesting discussion. I spoke to a few people about this regarding. I think when a lot of people start out in S&C, they always have that ambition of ending up within a first team, don't they? And I honestly believe, and this is just my belief, that certain people and certain types of personalities suit different roles. So some people are superb in the academy role to progress players through to a first team, whereas some people don't suit that and they suit the first team environment. So where do you see yourself fitting, and what are your aspirations?
Well, since I was young, I always supported Tottenham. I mean, every year I say to people at the beginning of the season, Tottenham are going to win the league. I say it all the time, and they haven't won a trophy in so long, but I still say it. I say, this is our year. I say it all the time. And people at work are just, they give me banter all the time. But I don't care. We'll win that trophy. But I think to answer your question would be to work at Tottenham. I think that would be a huge goal, something that I've always wanted to do. I remember in one of my first interviews at Derby County, actually, they asked me, like, where do you see yourself in the next, 10 years, or where do you want to be? And even then, it seemed like such a long way. But I said, I'd love to obviously become a strength and conditioning coach at Tottenham one day. But I think one thing that Dwayne, one of my who works for the first team, strength and conditioning coach at Oxford, and we always speak about it because we're both ambitious people. And he said, yeah, but even if that doesn't happen, that doesn't mean to say that obviously you've not been a success of what you've done. You should obviously set yourself higher. So yeah, I think, and in terms of academy and first team, at the moment, I'm really happy with academy. I think I like trying to be in that process of helping players develop into first team. I think in first team football, there's only so much improvement that you can do because they're kind of at a finished article already. However, within the academy, there's a lot of potential still there and a lot of improvements still to happen. So I think at the moment, academy football best suits me of where I want to be.
They're very different roles, aren't they? They're very different demands. And when we spoke to people in both situations, they talk about obviously we've got S&C principles applied to both, but in terms of the demands on the day-to-day challenges and routines, they can be very different, can't they, from a first team? And when we've touched on the 23s role in the middle down to 18s, but then opening up the academy is a very, very different sort of challenge, isn't it?
It's so different. I mean, I had the opportunity of gaining first team experience this season, and the pressure and just being around first team players. It's so obviously performance result driven, and everything has to be done right, because if it's not, then I guarantee you someone will pick it up on you. So yeah, like first team environment is very, very pressure driven. And I think academy is a relaxed version, if that makes sense.
And what do you think in terms of, like, because that was just my point of view in terms of personalities. I honestly believe that some personalities suit a first team and some suit an academy more. What are your beliefs with that? Do you agree? Or
yeah, I think for any first team environment, for any players, there's always going to be characters, and I think you need to have the personality to take banter, because if you can't take that banter within football, then it's just not for you, because players will test you and see how far you can go, and you have to be confident around that. So that's one main thing I think that is the difference between first team and academy. You have to take the banter and you have to know how to deal with that.
Awesome, mate. Well, I think there's been loads in this, Nathan. I think it's been action packed, and it's great to draw from your experiences, because I'm sure there's many people that are going through a similar journey to yours at the moment. And I know you've got a lot of aspirations, like you've just talked about. So it's good to catch you at this point and then see you progress. Which throughout the meetings so far, you've been to a number of our networking meetings, and we've seen you progress and do all the things that you've done so far. So it's exciting to see what the next few years hold as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like I was saying to you, the best coaches are thieves. So I'm just trying to speak to as many people as I can and be the best practitioner I actually can be. So yeah, I'm excited too. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for inviting me on here.
No problem at all, mate. Just want to give out your details in terms of if people want to get in touch regarding the calls, the webinars, but then just generally as well, if they want to just get in touch with yourself.
Yeah, so I'm quite active on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm always posting my videos and what I'm doing in terms of like exercises or anything like that. So definitely get me on Nathan Griffith. And then on Twitter, it's Nathan Griffith X. Sorry about the X, but that's what it is.
Awesome, mate. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll stay in touch. And yeah, we'll look forward to the webinar on Thursday with Cal and Paul Bauer. And I'm sure it'll be great and go down really well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to your future network meetings as well, which I'll be attending to in the future. So yeah,
we'll be announcing those just as soon as we get the green light and are able to speak to people in person again.
Nice one. Yeah, definitely be good.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again for inviting me.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.